Hey guys, this is Fury with Theories Insanity signing in with another video, and today we're talking about The Batman. That's right. All this controversy around Robert Pattinson being Batman, another reboot to the franchise. How is it? How was his performance? How was the movie itself? Is it worth going to see? Let's get into it. Alright, so what I want to talk about first is the costume design. Everything from Batman, Catwoman, Penguin, Riddler, all of that. First and foremost, this might be controversial, but I genuinely believe that this Batman's costume, Robert Pattinson's Batman costume, is probably the best we've seen in live action so far. I think it genuinely is intimidating. It feels very realistic, but it actually feels like something Batman would wear. Uh, even the Dark Knight costume was pretty cool. Christian Bale's Batman was incredible, but I was never 100% sold by the Batman costume. I thought it looked really good. It looked pretty much straight out of the comic books, but there's just something about this armor that Robert Pattinson is wearing, just the overall design, super goth and dark look. I think it is absolutely perfect. I have no complaints about the costume when it comes to Batman. The Riddler, I thought his design was pretty cool. It's definitely not your typical Riddler design. It's very steampunky, goth. It's very, backwater, do DIY, make it in your apartment out of just things you have lying around. But I think it worked. It definitely worked for the more serial killer vibe. Uh, Catwoman, I thought her design was cool. She's just starting off. She's not Catwoman yet. So that made sense to me. I wish towards the end of the movie that he would have given her, an original costume, like made one for her that really matched how she looks in the comics. But that didn't happen. Also, there's going to be slight spoilers. I'm going to try not to leak the whole plot of the movie, but just forewarning. The Penguin's design was really cool. Colin Farrell, I thought he was perfect. He was pretty much unrecognizable. That's what everybody says, but I genuinely believe it. He felt intimidating. He felt like a gangster from New York, which, that's pretty much what Gotham is. It's a steampunk more goth version of New York, but whatever. When it comes to the performance of all of these actors, Penguin was perfect. Absolutely no complaints there. Catwoman, her performance was pretty good. I thought there was a few cringy moments that didn't necessarily line up perfectly with her, but she had an overall amazing performance. She's a beautiful actress. She definitely looked the part. The Riddler, he was pretty cool. He definitely did his role well. I don't right now. I can't remember the actor's name, but I've seen him before, and that's pretty much the role that he normally does. So he fit right in with what he's used to. He definitely did his performance well, but I think Robert Pattinson's performance was great. When he's in the Batman costume, I don't think there's any complaints. He looks like Batman, he feels like Batman, he talks like Batman. His voice not being modified was a little different, but I dug it, with what this universe is going for. Much more grounded, very realistic. My only complaints with him is I feel like he looks more like a Terry McGinnis. And, you know, to each their own with your opinion, but I think he would have looked perfect for a Batman Beyond, a Terry McGinnis. I think his just overall look, his face isn't necessarily what I would expect Bruce Wayne's to look like, but his performance was great. He did a fantastic job. I have no complaints with that. It's just overall look was a little weird for me. All right, guys, so let's talk about Gotham City. I thought Gotham City in this movie is perfect. I thought it's the best iteration that we've ever had, especially just with the plot, with the overall mood of this world. It's the darkest, it's the grittiest Gotham we've ever seen. And I think that works perfectly with how serious this movie takes itself. I have no complaints there. I thought the atmosphere was beautiful. The city itself was beautiful. All of the set design was incredible with this movie. Uh, the plot. Now, this is a 3-hour movie. I'm sure as most of you probably know and understand that by now. Uh, and I thought it did perfectly. And I'm not trying to praise this movie. I'm not a fanboy for this movie. I do have issues that I'll talk about. But it being a 3 hour movie allowed it to flesh out exactly what it needed to. This is Batman Year 2, so you don't get the typical Batman parents get killed storyline. He starts off at the very beginning of the movie as Batman, and I think that works. It gives that 3 hours is focused solely on the plot that this story is trying to tell. There's no extra fluff. There's not much background stuff. You get a couple hints with his attitude and how he acts and reacts to things and other characters about how they grew up or some of their backstory, but it doesn't focus on that. That's just kind of like a little side plot within the story. It focuses on the Riddler, his serial killer rampage, trying to figure out who he is, what he wants, and how to stop him. And I think from point to point, the movie flows almost perfectly. I saw very few plot holes. I saw very few moments that didn't make sense. The story, the movie explains itself almost perfectly when it comes scene to scene. It transitions very well. It's not sloppy. And that's not something you see with superhero movies or comic book movies nowadays. There's tons of plot holes. They jump around. They're focused on being flashy and beautiful and bright and charismatic. And there are definitely some charismatic parts to this movie. There are some flashy moments, some straight bussin' scenes in this movie, but it's definitely not as over the top as the Christopher Nolan movies, as the Dark Knight movies. It's very much so grounded. It takes itself very seriously. The pace is slower. It's not boring, but it definitely takes itself slower. It explains how things are going. It allows you to understand and know what's going on from scene to scene, and that's something that I really loved. While still bringing in, those comic book personalities. Like I saw some people complaining about some of the decisions that Robert Pattinson made in this movie. Some of Batman's choices, and they made complete sense to me because that's how Batman is in the comics. He's incredibly smart and intelligent, but he doesn't necessarily always make the best decisions because he's going to put himself on the line for other people. He's not thinking, if I do this, I'm going to die. He's thinking, I'm going to do this regardless of whether I'm going to die because I'm going to try to save these people. And, I'm going to leave it there. Let's see. Now, like I said, explaining the plot, my opinions on the plot, pretty much covered the pacing of the movie. Like I said, I think it flows very well. It's very smooth. And there was no point in the 3 hour time span that I wanted to leave or that I got bored. I actually checked my phone a few times because I was like, damn, I hope there's not only 15 minutes left because it needs more time to flush this out. And then I'd look at my phone and be like, oh shit, we still got an hour left. That's great. We still have an hour left to flush out the plot and stuff. Does it feel like Batman? Absolutely. I think the detective parts in this movie really did it justice. I think that's one of its strongest points, is just actually a more grounded Batman, showing some of the stuff we never really get to see. You got to see a little bit of it in The Dark Knight, but not to the extent that we needed it. Like I said, it was more focused on flashy, dramatic scenes, really cool fight scenes, and there are definitely some of those in this movie, but the ground time, just Bruce being Batman, not necessarily always jumping headfirst into the fray and fighting. There's plenty of that. There's plenty of badass moments with Robert Pattinson just walking in, slinging his junk around, and making people know who he is, which is great. But I love the more grounded approach. I love actually showing what Batman does when he's not on the streets fighting criminals. My overall opinion on this movie, I would give it probably an 8.5. It's not perfect, but it is incredible. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved this take on Batman. I loved Robert Pattinson as Batman. I loved all the supporting cast. And I think it definitely sets up something that could be great in the future. There's a few parts that I wish they had fleshed out a little bit more. I wish they'd been able to spend a little bit more time with Batman and Catwoman's relationship. Because, spoiler, at the end of the movie, when she leaves, it felt kind of heartwarming seeing that Batman cared, but at the same time, it felt like he fell for this woman way too hard, way too quickly. Uh, and he doesn't necessarily show it all that well, but what they implied was that he really did care about her, that he wanted to be with her to a certain extent. And I wish that they had been able to flush out that kind of intensity or romance with him a little bit more. And at the end, when they tease the Joker, I'm kind of like, I love the Joker. I'd love to see him in this world, but at the same time, I would like them to not necessarily feel like they need to focus an entire movie or a portion of the story on him. I'd love for him to kind of grow in the background, maybe pop up here and there, and then over time, over the course of a couple movies, he could become a major villain and stuff like that. And one of the other concerns is, one of the biggest problems I had with the Dark Knight trilogy is I felt like they tried to be way too realistic. Not enough fantastical, Batman comic stuff. I loved the first and second Dark Knight movie, but I really had an issue with the third one, with how they portrayed Bane. Completely cutting out the Venom storyline. That is Bane. I know there's probably iterations of him out there that he's not controlled by the Venom. He's not addicted to Venom and using that to make himself powerful, but having such a grounded and realistic version of him when they did the Scarecrow gas and stuff in the first movie was just not, I was not a fan of it. So I'm hoping that they don't shy away from having a little bit of fantastical characters. It doesn't have to be Superman or something showing up, not even necessarily Killer Croc, but if they did Bane from the comics, or if they did Mr. Freeze, where he actually, to some extent, has a free suit, stuff like that, I think that would be really cool. I really hope that they introduce like Robin or something. That's something I was a little disappointed on. There was no other members of the Bat family in the Dark Knight trilogy, and I really hope they don't take that path with this franchise. I would love to see some of the Bat family show up, or at least grow in some way. Like at the end of the second movie, if he adopted Dick Grayson or something, or at halfway through the second movie he adopts him and slowly incorporates him into his life, and then at the end of the movie he might get a costume or something. That would be really cool. I don't know. I love this movie. I genuinely recommend watching it. I think it's a fantastic experience, and fans of the comics, fans of Batman in general, should love it. And just in general, if you're not a big superhero person, if you love a cool dark story, if you love mystery movies and stuff like that, I definitely feel like this has some stuff you would enjoy. But without further ado, I'll let you guys go. I hope you enjoyed my take on the Batman. I hope you guys go see it, or have already seen it. If you have, please let me know what you think of my take. Please let me know what you think about the movie, what you think about the future, and if you haven't seen it, tell me if you want to go see it based on this review or what somebody else said, or just maybe your own interest. Maybe this had no impact on you, but please let me know what you think of the video. I know it's a lot more simpler than the videos I used to make. I just have to get some more equipment, and I need to figure out a new video editing software to use. But if you enjoyed the video, if you want to support the channel, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think. This is Fury with Fury's Insanity. I hope to see you in the next video.